What does the messy middle, barriers to entry, and making a career pivot have in common? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I am your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I learn right along with you from amazing guests and speakers like Alana Karen, who's on the show today. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite, a portfolio career network where women are building what's next. I hope you'll visit us at hercsuite.com to learn more. Today's guest, Alana Karen, I got the chance to meet when I was a speaker with her on a panel with Holly Corbett and Unconsciously Biased about AI. Afterwards, we had conversations and I thought, oh my goodness, she has to come on the show so you can hear from her. Alana has had over 23 years at Google before she started out on her own. She's written a best-selling book, and it's in its second edition now. The Adventures of Women in Tech, Navigating the Hard Tech Era is a book that all of us can learn from. And speaking of learning from, let's get started with this conversation and listen all the way to the end, because what Alana's doing today will surprise you. Let's dive in now. Alana, I'm so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. Thanks for being on the show.
I'm happy to be here.
I cannot wait for this conversation. I have had the amazing opportunity to speak with you a few times. We were on a panel together. Shout out to our friend Holly, who introduced us. Amazing. But I want to know, for our listeners, the snapshot, because you've had an incredible career, a snapshot that brings us to today.
So I was at Google for 23 years, various operations and leadership roles across ads, policy, Google Fiber, ultra fast internet, and then Google search, deep infrastructure world. And I wrote 2 books, well, actually 3 now. And all of this, I started off as a history major. So I'm pretty convinced people can do anything.
I love that people can do anything, and they can. And you have really done some really interesting things with your portfolio career right now. You're doing a second edition of your book. Let's talk a little bit about that. What was that like for you? And what is the update and what do we need to know?
Well, I highly recommend writing a book after you've left your full time job, because the first edition I wrote in the evenings, weekends, holidays, when I had a full time job. That book, The Adventures of Women in Tech, How We Got Here and Why We Stay, was really triggered out of an annoyance that I wasn't seeing the kind of book I wanted to see that covered lots of different women, different ambitions, different backgrounds, different races, different things they studied, different types of roles in tech, and showed more about their journey and what you might have to do, what skills you might have to build, et cetera, to endure. It was really all about belonging. As I was exiting Google, I was thinking about a 5-year edition, like a 5-year anniversary update. And my focus had shifted somewhat away from belonging and into a little bit more like, are people even enjoying tech the same way, wanting to work there? The cultures have really shifted in a lot of the big companies and small companies. The AI race has a lot of different implications for employees. Trust had degraded over the years. And there were hints of this when I wrote the first edition, but it really accelerated. And so I wrote 3 extra chapters, re-released the book to really help people who are navigating the times now, deciding whether to get into tech now, deciding whether to stay in tech now, understand this period of time, and even like why the company shifted, like what's happening that would lead to this. Because I think there's obviously, you can always kind of just like make tech seem like the boogeyman, but it's coming from somewhere. So why?
When we did our panel, you said something that made me think about there's a tie into what you just said, which is people that are in tech are asking themselves, is it worth it? Should I stay? And I think that happens to all of us in different points in our careers, but the pressure is so high for some industries more so than others, with always having to deliver and, expectations. What have you seen in your career and then also in the evolution of writing those last 3 chapters? What came out of that for you?
I think there's a set of people, and not a small set, like a good meaningful chunk, because I even did a survey, who are still really in it to win it. The AI era may have even boosted their career, reinforced their interests, given them a new path in lots of ways. So, like, I think that it would be hyperbole to say it's awful for everyone, right? But I think there's a meaningful set of people who've felt disenfranchised by layoffs, by the clear message that if you aren't using AI or aren't involved in AI, you're no longer worthwhile. And along with that, the companies have taken a lot of pretty strong moves towards be back in the office, long hours, called people back from working from home or working remotely, which was working for a lot of people as individuals. And I think just a really strong period of time where, like, I'm not getting the value back that I'm giving. It's one thing if you're in a relationship with the company, you work really hard, but there's enormous upside. And I think that's what the startup era really was about, right? You work really hard, probably you don't remember a lot of your life, but there's maybe a big payout, or you've accelerated your career so quickly in a way you couldn't have anywhere else. Now, tech companies are a little bit more just normal, right? Promotions are slower, comp is higher for technical roles, but it's not like there's always the huge payout that there was previously. So I think a lot of people are just like balancing that equation for themselves. So you have a lot more employees who maybe like don't believe. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these voluntary exit packages at some companies because they're trying to get the disbelievers off their boat. But it's a very interesting time. Very interesting time.
It is, and there was a recent, I know it was in Harvard Business Review, but I think there's other publications that came out that actually people are working more than they were before because of the expectation, because the thought is that AI has freed up our time, which I think is a misnomer. I can speak from personal experience. I generally spend a lot more time, but I'm thinking differently. It's different for everyone, right? But the exponential pressure that is coming from now you have these tools. So you can do it faster and give us better, but sometimes it doesn't always come out the way you want. And then you have to revise and revise and revise. And you would have been better off doing it a different way, right? Like sometimes the tool doesn't always deliver.
It might take the same amount of time.
Right. It just is a different output and it helps for me. I use, certain things for strategy or Notebook LM is my new favorite thing, but sometimes Notebook LM doesn't always give me what I want. And there's no back and forth with it. So I'm like, oh, I have to give the prompt again and then see if it gives me a better one. It's like, so that takes time. And I think this concept of like we're saving time, what do you think about that, about saving time? Do you think we save time?
I think on certain things we save time. And I think that unfortunately, that then makes CEOs and leaders believe that that applies to more complex work that you give AI. It's very different to ask AI to find you three shoes that meet X criteria than it is to have it write you a business plan. And so I think that there's this weird gap right now that won't be for forever, but right now, where the people making the decisions about how many to people to hire, who to fire, haven't had experience doing these jobs with these tools. And so they just think it works a certain way. Over time, people will go up through the ranks who actually used the tools and have a better sense as a software engineer of what is accomplishable, of a marketing person about what it can do. And it will become more realistic. Obviously, also the technology will improve and people's access to them and their understanding of them will also improve. But we're in this weird, rocky period of time where people think it saves time, but there's both a learning curve and there's a huge ignorance of what you then might have to do with the product or how you might have to go back and forth, or even how you could go down a rabbit hole with it and end up just like scrapping it and deciding to do it yourself at some point. So I think, everyone's trying to have their cake and eat it too right now. That would be lovely for CEOs to have everything be cheaper, need less people, all the upside. They keep the extra money, right? But it's not there yet. The whole system isn't there yet, regardless of where the technology is. I think sometimes people speak big about what the technology is accomplished, like what the technology can do, and then they don't understand the adoption component.
Hey, it's Natalie. I wanted to pop in here and ask a question. Are you navigating what's next? I understand exactly where you are because I've done that multiple times being an entrepreneur, and I also lead programs exactly for women like you. Check it all out at her C Suite network, where we are focused on being a portfolio career community, and we help women not only navigate what's next, but build the career and life of your dreams by design. Check it all out at hercsuite.com today. We both have children in a certain age demographic. And I know on my personal experience, my daughters are not big fans for entry level jobs. It's been very difficult. And also from the environment and all of those things. What are you seeing? Are you seeing different age groups have different opinions?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just in the messy middle right now. There's kids I see completely rejecting it. There's kids I see outsourcing their entire, like, all of their homework. Like they're really not critically thinking as much anymore because this thing can write it a book report. Is it a good book report? Is it completely accurate? Right? Like, but you have something to turn in. And so if you're looking for the easy way out, I think there's always been a set of the kids looking for the easy way out, right? Like they were always going to cheat. They were always going to, like, in some way, shape, or form. It then gives the use of it a bad name because you see a set of people not critically thinking, not using it to aid their path critically. And it then leads a separate set of people to completely reject it. The smart thing, which humans are very bad at, is to be somewhere in the middle where you critically use it for the tasks it is best at. You then make it your own and you use it to improve what you might have not understood, right? There were a bunch of kids, maybe sometimes lost in the interpretation of James Joyce or something. And now you could ask AI, like, tell me, does the river talk? Like, what's happening? Or something where you were never good at making presentations. And now you could have something like that helps you over that hump, that evens the playing field, right? But you still have to apply your skills, your talent to make it your own. In fact, I think increasingly schools and work will consider it essentially cheating to just purely copy off of AI. So you really do have to get savvy about using it, and I think that those people will be the ones best positioned for whatever jobs exist in this new world because they will have figured out how to use these tools to their best needs. I do think we're in the messy middle right now where companies have overly stopped hiring entry level people because they think they'll replace them with AI. I think they'll figure out both that that doesn't completely work and also that over time they still need to grow senior people regardless. So I think it'll correct itself a bit, but there is a world where companies will need fewer grunt types. And so you have to be the best grunt. And the best grunt probably will know how to use these tools.
Right? I think it is being able to apply like what you were saying, but there's also a segment of things that you can do that don't involve AI. And you have a very interesting things that you are doing, including your organizational work that you're doing, which I find really fascinating. Can you share a little bit for our listeners about what you're doing that is not using AI at all? I don't think, to my knowledge.
Well, I did a little bit. Obviously, I've been operational my whole life. One of the things that I really enjoy personally is decluttering. And I love this feeling of clarity it brings and peace to like own your space, to have your space back. I think it has a lot of mental tie ins. And so, in this portfolio career I'm putting together, this year I'm experimenting with organizing other people's homes. And I am working on a basement right now. And I got to say, I just love it. I feel so like useful.
I'm like, I wish you weren't in California. I'd be like, come over, let's go.
Fly me out, fly me out. But it's just like to take something that's like such a mess and then within days have it be clean. I think for any of us who have more professional or tech careers or projects that just take way longer, it's so satisfying, right? Like it's real world, it's off the computer screen. Yeah, and it's back to real life world things and real life logistics. And I think sometimes we need a break from this, the news that we're getting online, the jobs we have to do online, the interactions we're having online. So I'm loving it personally. I will say that I did think a little bit about like, how could AI be useful in this? I think there's a lot that I'm not going to use it for because the job won't be online. It'll be in someone's dusty attic or whatever. But I did sit down and I said, hey, AI, like, if I was interested in starting a business, what would I need to think about? What are these real world implications? And because it's trained to be so helpful, right? It'll give you the initial list and then it'll be like, oh, do you want me to write you up a price list? Do you want me to write up a initial terms of engagement? Do you want me to write up your supplies list that you might need? And, I just kept saying, yes, why not? You are trained on the world's information that you can access, at least right now. Go scrub it for me. Tell me what I don't know. I'm obviously not going to do everything on it. It's not all relevant. I'll give an example. It told me to register my business with the local city. I went through the motions of doing that, even though when I read up, I was basically exempt. And I just got a rejection notice today. It was like, you don't qualify, you're exempt. So, like, not everything is going to be relevant because it's just kind of thinking, oh, this might be a problem for you. But I do think there was a little bit of a fear factor, probably for people in the past, about how to start or even implement a new business. And you've got this helper potentially now before you're embarrassed talking to real people. I think you might still want to talk to a real lawyer. You might still want to talk to a real business advisor, right? Like all of these type of people, but at least you can be better versed. You can feel like you're not just wandering in. You know more now. I think that's lovely. I think it evens playing field for a lot of us.
Hindsight's 2020, but I wish that I had some of the tools that weren't 6 years ago when I started exploring starting a company and launched at the end of 2020, because I would have saved a lot in a lot of ways, right? Being able to ask, is going into Delaware a good idea? No, it was not. So, but I did it anyway and I got out.
Well, and by the way, the common wisdom was you incorporate in Delaware. So like you might still have gotten that back from AI, but now you might also have gotten a summary of pros and cons, right?
Right. Yes. What is a SWOT on this? Give me, tell me what's the good and the bad of this idea. So it's funny because I thought about it this morning when I was working out. I work out and then I was like walking in my basement, talking to my AI tool. Okay, this is my idea. Let's talk it through. And I do find that I use the voice, but then I read. I don't like the voice back because it's kind of slower. So I like, but I have found that that is really good for starting ideas. Like you're saying, it's opened the playing field to anyone can start anything.
I'll give you a totally random example. I was thinking about the other day, like there's these bots that are just posting negative news. What if I start a bot that just posts positive comments? Like, go get him, Tiger. Like, right? Like,
Love that.
literally, like, I have these ideas all the time. What does it take to start that? What does it look like? And I will say that when I did more research, I was like, I don't think there's, unless I like really spend a lot of money on this, I'm not going to get exactly what I want. And so I might just want to be my own personal agent for good out there as I'm scrolling around on the internet. But it does. It helps you sort of, is an idea worth it or not? And like maybe something that you would have written off is more feasible. And I think before you really needed to know a space to ask those questions to even begin. And so you might not even start. And I like the lowering the starting cost.
Yeah, the starting cost and also just being able to not I think we were saying earlier about being, if you think about fear and the things that often stop us, if you're just talking to an LM and actually on our panel, we talked about this a little bit about what does it look like if you're telling your secrets to your LM? That was really interesting, wasn't it?
I honestly haven't really used it as a therapist, but I will say I do know that people are using it, especially for like corporation stumbling blocks. I have a friend who goes to it and be like, they said this about my promotion. What would you suggest to like respond? So I definitely think people are using it in that way. And it is interesting because it's an enabler for the most part. Like, unless you train it to say, point out my weak spots, it's going to mostly support you. So I think that is going to be somewhat of a challenge for bosses to have all these people amped up by like positive AI goodness.
For our listeners who are leaders and they're entrepreneurs, people that are getting on boards, that's kind of the demographic of the people that are tuning in today. Is there something you can recommend that they can think about differently as they think about this new era that we're in? What's one thing that they can think about to, either try or think about differently that they might be not aware of?
Be very aware that there is this gap right now between how you as a leader accelerated through your career and got to leadership and what your people are now experiencing. Partially, it's the environment that maybe you got to that position in, the positive hiring environment or economic environment or whatever that was happening at the time, where maybe you accelerated through your promotions more quickly or whatever was happening. Or it also may be this AI thing. I really want people to be aware of, like, if you're telling your employees to do something you haven't done yourself, it was always a problem, by the way. It was always hard to totally get credibility. You were probably missing out on some things, but you probably had a better sense because you at least had worked your way up through the ranks in a similar environment. Now, if you are telling your employees to do a job and to do it faster because of AI and you've never tried it yourself, you've never tried the tools yourself, both paid and unpaid. You've never really tried the thing and seen what Copilot, which you rolled out to everyone, can do, what any of the tools you let them use, but also some of the tools you probably don't know that they use, right? If you are not familiar with that, number one, you might be getting scammed. They might just be turning in work that's purely AI work. And you have to decide whether that matters to you, honestly. If it's good enough, maybe you don't care. But if it's you want to see more from your employees than just purely that, you might not know. But secondly, you're probably not realistically understanding or asking what they're engaging with and making actually smart decisions in the boardroom if you don't have some level of experience with it. And I'm not saying you have to spend hours and hours a week on it, but have you touched it? Have you used it? Like, I remember back in the day when bosses were still getting their emails printed out for them and the secretary was still answering the printed out emails. That kind of disconnect is pretty big when you think about your labor force and how they're starting to communicate, how they're starting to work, how jobs start to get done. You don't want to be that guy or gal.
That's so interesting. I mean, I forgot about the printing out of the emails because you're like, who does that? That is not a good use of trees, but also time, right? I have one last question because we talked about this and I would be remiss of not asking you because this thing happened this morning and we talked about it before and I just have to bring it up because I'm curious about your perspective. of visibility and how can we get more women engaged to have that visibility. So the context was I read an article that showed this big to do about two of the big AI founders on a stage and they weren't holding hands and everyone was upset about that and missing the point that there were 12 men and one woman, and the woman was off to the side. And concurrently, there was this other event where there were female founders in AI and they were not featured on the stage. And it just feels like this big disconnect. I know it's a big question, but what can we do to encourage women to have a voice in the space and think about it in a way that is meaningful to them? Because it can feel really overwhelming, I'm sure.
Listen, I think there's always going to be a chilling effect. It's always going to feel chilly while you're trying to get on that stage, when you're trying to get on that list. I'm reminded there was a recent Times cover of like the brightest, like the people moving AI forward. And there was one woman, but she was on the edge of a literal like building pylon thing. So literally she's at risk of falling off of the end of this metaphorical like building pylon thing. And apparently like sometimes it would cut off. Like I don't even know. Like she just sometimes wasn't there.
Oh,
And I think that then sometimes will take away a message about ourselves from that stuff. All I can say is that benefits them, not you. Just because that happened there doesn't mean it'll happen again. There are ballsy women on the center stage. Just look for them. Kara Swisher comes to mind. She's always in the center stage interviewing whoever the person is and making them look pretty dumb, right? Like you don't need to be the edge lady. You can be the center person if you want. And you're just going to sometimes have to ignore that it isn't a hospitable environment for you if you want to be that person. If you're sensitive, if you are fragile, it's going to be hard. Most of us just develop thick skin over time. Should we have to? I don't know. To me, that's a useless question. The system is not enabling us to have thin skin. The system requires us, if we want to be there, to be tough and demand, hey, don't put me on the edge. I'm the only lady. You wanted representation. Put me in the middle. Put me in between these two guys who won't shake hands. I'll solve that problem for you. You're going to have to be tougher. And like, listen, some of these people are really weird. Speaking of the shaking hands things, they're weird. You're going to have to like look straight in the face of weirdness and come up with an approach. And women are more likely to be adaptable and to think of those things because we have been literally trained by the societies we're in to take care of other people and make them comfortable. That doesn't mean you always have to take that on. Don't get people coffee. But the point is, you are more likely to think of solutions on average than men are for some of these problems because that's how we're programmed. That's how we tend to think.
well, I just want to encourage all our listeners to try something new. The learning field has just opened up. There's no age discrimination in learning AI. You can learn it from anywhere, anytime, and be curious. I think that's the thing, right?
Be curious. And there will always be positive and negative things from these technical revolutions.
For sure.
And this one may be a larger one, but there's still going to be positive. Are you going to align yourself with the positive?
Yes, align with the positive. That is a great way for us to finish up. How can people find you if they want to know more about you?
Come over to alanakaren.com.
Perfect. I will have that in the show notes. Alana, it's been so wonderful having you on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for spending your time with Alana and me today. I also want to thank Holly Corbett for introducing me to Alana. It was amazing being on the panel with her. We enjoyed connecting afterwards, and the door opened, and now it's open to you. If you're navigating what's next and you never thought that you could do something like what Alana is doing, I want to encourage you to open the window and fly through, my friend, because the possibilities are there. You just have to be open to the ideas. And if this episode resonated, will you share it with a friend or colleague who's also trying to figure out what to do next? I want to help as many women as possible around the world navigate and understand anything is possible. It just is a matter of planning. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.